Will, are all the home builders created equal? Are you going to have winners and losers as you get into this earnings season?
I think you could split them into two groups. First and foremost, the haves and the have-nots, the guys who aren't overly levered. They invested in the land at the right time, not late because they didn't have the availability to finance their balance sheet, call it roughly about a year ago. And the other side is the guys who are levered the first-time home buyer and those who aren't.
So we've got KB and Lennar, who are both reporting on Tuesday. Which camp do they fall in?
I think KB would be considered one of the have-nots in particular. They invested in land over the last trailing 12 months. It's about a third of their total lot count, number one. Number two, you're over-leveraged, so you're going to have gross margin underperformance. When you look at Lennar, they're a national builder. I think what you're going to see there is if some order softness probably brings down housing start expectations for not only my group, but overall, the whole construction industry for the next couple of years. Because the economy is probably, from a housing perspective, recovering at a slower pace than what we believe from a number of constraints.
We talked to the Toll Brothers CEO last week, and he was talking about just this pent-up demand that's out there. And finally, there's household formation, and that the building has been so far below pace for so many years at this point. Is there some sort of explosion? Have we already seen it? What happens?
I think you have three key things holding you back. The first is on the housing finance side. It's well known. You have QM, QRM. They're going to get implemented at the beginning of next year. So we're already seeing the banks pull back from some of the non-QM product as well as lock in that 43% back-end DTI ratio. You only have 1 million developed lots. That's probably number two, and that's a big issue because half of those are probably not considered A or B lots. And the last piece is the labor force isn't there yet. They'd rather do jobs like fracking or something. They get paid more for doing a similar type of activity.
Although we did see permits were pretty phenomenal, the last report.
It wasn't bad. I mean, you're talking low 900s, but I mean, that's not the 1.5 million that people were looking for at the high end over the, call it 12 months ago. So it's a slower, gradual pace, and I think that brings down expectations. And then you want to buy these stocks because people like to long them into the spring selling season trade when they outperform by about 20%. Call it, from December beginning to April end.
So which of the stocks are your favorite? Which ones would you actually go ahead and buy?
I like Horton the most. I like the leverage of the first-time home buyer. We think financing might open on the edges right there, and we'll see that buyer come back. Number two, Brookfield Residential Properties. It's not a well-known name, but what's interesting about it is you probably have a double if you start doing intrinsic value on what their land book is based on the disclosure they provided about 9 months ago.
And the rest of the stocks, just if you look at them as a group, are they overvalued?
I would say on 15 earnings they are, and probably that expectation comes down. On price to book, they're about fair value. That could speak to a number of issues. Most importantly, it's a sentiment roller coaster. I think sentiment improves because you're going into that spring selling season trade.